Yo, it's Guido coming at you with a tactics talk. We have GA Johnny, who has asked for a review of his GSOR 1008 gameplay. I don't know, I stink at it. I stink at that thing. I do. But we're going to watch GA. We'll talk about some generalities, and I think I have a good idea of what you have to do with this tank. It's just not easy. It's not easy. It is, in my opinion, a broken game mechanic on a difficult to use tank. The ability to drop that much damage out of this thing is a bit silly. But anyway, we're not here to wah about a tank and its game mechanic. We're going to talk to GA Johnny from Clan WCTNT. Yo to you guys. And let's see what he does. We are on whatever this is called, Tundra. This map is difficult to play with a TD. There's not a lot of great spots. Just discuss that for a minute, and then we'll talk about this initial position here. I believe that the hill is the critical terrain, although it is not as clear cut on this map. I still think it's a strong position, and if I had to weigh this in the heavy area in the middle, meaning the heavy area over in the west, I would pick the hill pretty much every time. You don't always have a tank that can get to the hill, and the red guys get a vote. So on this map, the red guys' vote matters maybe a little more than other maps. If they make a good, strong push kind of over on the west side and just keep you busy on the hill, then they can cause trouble as they filter through. The problem is once you win the west from either side, you have to clear these kind of open areas. It's worse in the north. It's easier to move up in the south because they've given you this nice divot. There's a little bit of a divot here, but there's so much open terrain. There's a lot more cover to move through in the south side if you're on the green side or you spawn into the north. Pros and cons. That being said, GA, I would have probably taken it over to the east side. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's the only way to do it, because what you're doing here is looking for some early shots, and that can also be important on this map. The south spawn will do the same thing as your guys cross. Say you're KV4, he's really too close over there. If he gets seen, he's going to eat some shots from various TDs more than likely, because where GA is posting up here, the south guys will post it. You can see the Su-130 PM is spotted about where I'm talking about, and they'll try to shoot guys early here. There are fewer shots for the north side. You're really counting on somebody getting up in this middle area right here, and that's what I wanted to talk about, because if you look at the spotting ring, this is where they'll kind of come up through right here, and they're going to pretty much see you. Break, this thing has really good camo, especially when it's stopped like that, so maybe they don't see you, but I think you're just really kind of asking for it right here, especially with 2 artillery, and he's looking at that TD spot to see if he can't get a shot. Unfortunately, from where you are, the Su-130 is out of draw distance, so you're probably not going to actually see him to shoot him. You can see him on the map. You might be able to line up a shot, but you're not going to be able to actually see him unless he's scooted way forward. So that was kind of a lot about that initial position right there. Not a big deal. There were no shots to be had. And then we're going to come up here, and I learned something here that I didn't know, and I'm assuming GA knew it because he kind of went to here. It looked to be on purpose. There's some bushes right here. Look at this bush. He is not getting spotted, and he's shooting. He's basically double bushed by that little tiny bush there, and this is a fairly small TD. So I think your lower casemates, any of your taller, bigger ones, are probably going to get seen right here. The top of it will be up above the bush, but look how far inside the spotting rings these heavies are, and they just don't see him right here. I didn't know this spot was here. The only thing I'll say about this, and I'm assuming you know, if somebody starts trolling around in the middle of these buildings, you're going to get spotted pretty quickly, and if you're zoomed in like this, really concentrating on the heavies, maybe that guy gets a free shot or 2, depending on if he's an autoloader or whatever, or has a button. So we're going to hang out here. We got a lot of gold. We're carrying binocs. I don't know. I don't know if I'd put binocs on this thing. I suppose it's not a bad choice. I don't know what your other equipment is. You'd have to let us know down below. I'm assuming probably vents and one of the aiming devices of some kind, I guess, would be my guess. We're running food, so that's going to help out a little bit with the accuracy on this thing. And now what you're witnessing, everybody, is the really long reload. You got to sit around for 40-odd seconds waiting for this thing to reload. So he's got 20 gold rounds and 20 APCR. For anyone who hasn't been paying attention, and I'm sure you probably have, but the penetration on the gold round is 321, but it's got quite the anemic penetration on the standard round at 226, so not great on the standard round. Yeah, so it's interesting because the gold rounds are expensive as well. We're sneaking a few in. We're really relying here on getting a little bit lucky on pinning turrets. And all those tanks have pretty strong turrets. So yeah, we've got the 300-something pin, and some of them are managing to go through, but the shots here aren't fantastic. So you spend a lot of time doing this. This bush is interesting. I didn't really know. I think we actually get spotted here trying to do this. And this is how I know that the bush is working, because when he does that, he's a little bit closer, so that may play into it, but he was also outside the bush, and he actually gets spotted and shot at. Thank goodness the arty wasn't really paying attention back here. They're probably well busy with other things. That's one of the nice things about being spotted a little bit later in a game, is the arty will not really be paying attention. They've probably already shot a bunch of other people, and they've decided whatever it is that they're focusing on is probably already decided. So if you show up a bit later, you may get away with hanging out a little bit out in the open before they kind of either see you or your team is gone enough that you're now something they're going to focus on. So a lot of rocking back and forth. The KV-4 and the Basanti are starting to lose. The 100-01, is that what it was? Yeah, is dead over there. I think I might have taken that shot. That was one of the best ones you had, really. At least the guy wasn't moving. So we're kind of trying to clog it up. Now, one thing about being here and hitting, even just hitting these guys, is they may think twice about pushing in and attempting to take on your two guys that are there. So they had an overmatch. Once they killed the 100-01, they had a big overmatch. But they haven't done anything with it, and generally that's because they're worried about various TDs and snipers sitting back where you are. The Barask, maybe the ISU 152, once they come around the corner. Well, he's in a really strange place right there. I guess he's trying to cover the middle or maybe shoot up onto the hill. So same thing I'll do when I go to this side on the west and go, well, I'd love to push in on the two near-deads here, but I just know there's a bunch of TDs sitting back here waiting for me to do that, and I'll start taking hits. So there is some function to you being here. The problem with World of Tanks and things like that, and you get a nice kill right here, is that they're important, but they're not always directly related to a win, because yes, while you might be holding a spot and keeping people back, what's going on in the more critical terrain, your team starts to lose wholesale. In this case, you're a little bit behind, so it's not really hurting you very much, but it's that eternal question in this game. Do I get forward and get to critical terrain and get my gun in the game, or do I rely a little bit on the enemy team from a strong position pushing in? And you got a little bit on this game. These guys did push in. So now we're trying to deal with a couple heavies over here with our little TD. Obviously, the problem with going over to what I would call the critical terrain over there, and you were not even close to reloaded. Let me just cover that real quick, and then we'll get to the critical terrain question, the hill. If you're not reloaded and you poke out and they see you, if you meant to let them see you just to kind of push them back, then that's a great deal. But a lot of times with these really slow reloads, when you're watching the reloader go around, oftentimes the problem I'll have is if I'm used to the single shot reloader, which I am generally, I'll see it at a certain position and go, ooh, I'm just about ready to shoot. And you'll poke out and you'll realize, crap, that it's relative to the amount of time it takes to reload. Yes, it's, you know, at the 11 o'clock position, but I still have 8 seconds left. So it will draw you out into situations like that. The other option, obviously, is like I just talked about, is to poke out and maybe make them think twice about pushing you. So I'm not sure what you're trying to do right there, but just a good little discussion item. I don't know if I would have poked out there. You got lucky with the bounce for sure. He took a shot. Now the critical terrain is losing. Could you have made a difference there with your autoloader? You know, we'll never know, right? Because you didn't do it. I would say probably. Would these guys have pushed in more? Maybe. So, you know, it's not a case of I can tell you what the exact right answer is. It's just the two things to think about. I tend to be more aggressive and try to get out there and get to the terrain where I can start doing damage really early and fast. This guy just pokes out. I don't know why. Very strange, but he dies. Very good. Let's talk about reloads here in just a second. After I get done with the... I tend to go to the places where I try to get the damage early, but sometimes it gets me dead early. I'm a more aggressive player. Other players are going to agree with you and say, hey, hang back with this, especially with this kind of tank. Sit back and look for that damage that kind of comes to you, or at least be within a supporting position and be able to shoot at the things that your guys up forward are shooting. That's quite a bit harder on the hill, because you really need to be up on the ramp and you're going to be spotted and all that good stuff. You can sit in that north place about where the arty is, over here on the corner, but that's not really a great position. It used to be fantastic, but there's not a lot of cover. There's a little bush, but it's pretty easily spotted. Hard to get any shots anyway. It's really pixel sniping through there, so could be there. Really on a TD, it's here. somewhere in the middle like the ISU or maybe in this corner and then back where you are. It's just a very difficult TD map. But this thing is mobile and it's got a turret and the 4 shots, and I really think with you added to the scrum down here, your team might have done a little bit better on the hill. Does that mean the west side falls? Possibly, but the reason I'm calling this the critical terrain over here and not as important as the west, even if it falls, it's so hard to do anything with it. If they are doing something with it, you've probably lost wholesale in every direction. So just some things to think about. I'm not going to tell you that one is right or the other. I would have definitely reloaded right there. Was the other thing. Just hit C. You had some time. You only have 1 shell. You can't kill the 703-2 with 1 shell. Even if he comes around the corner, yeah, there you go. So we finally do that. I think you probably wish you had about 10 seconds ago. Hindsight's 20/20. Maybe you thought he was pushing and you just wanted to get one more shot on him, soften him up for the RD or the other TD or whatever. But clip management, guys, on this thing, on the GSOR, is really difficult and it's really important. Right? Very difficult, very important. The other thing to notice is he's got 5 shells, which is an odd number. If he ends up shooting all 4, he only has 1 left. So there's other things to think about there. In faster reloaders, a lot of times if I shoot 1, I'll go ahead and click the reload so I can get all 4 of them in there, all 4 being the APCR Gold Special Premium round. But with a reload this long, you got to be careful about that. And if that's kind of your automatic, habit pattern, be careful with that, because I caught myself out a couple times jumping into a 40-second reload when I probably really wanted to just leave the 2 or 3 shells. Nice thing about this thing is it's carrying, I think, 320 alpha. Is that about right? Yeah, 320 alpha. Even with 2 or 3 shells, it's dropping a pretty good chunk of change. And when you get down to this part of the game, where a lot of guys are hurt and they're down to 1 shots or 2 shots, that's probably enough to be effective. If you got a long time, go ahead and eat the 40-second reload, and I think he had it right there. So we're going to come in here. This gets a little crazy, actually. This guy misses, thank goodness. I think I would have taken that. It's showing green. Yeah, you may have bounced, and this is the problem with auto-aim. It's really centroid on this guy. That's really close to the gun mantlet. It's also on the upper plate, which is angled, but it's showing green pen. You've got that nice 321. I think just take that first one, see if it gets a good pen. If it doesn't, then be more careful from there. That's how I would have handled that, because I know I have 4 shells and he's a 2-shot. So take 1. If it bounces, take 2 careful shots. Even if one of those bounces, you still have the 3rd one. The problem with waiting is he's got 5 seconds before he's shooting you again with the other big gun. You do get by him, but the turret is so slow. And there's another danger with these TDs. Most of the turreted TDs, one of the bouncing factors Wargaming does is they have slow turrets to avoid this kind of thing. Because you get these autoloaders in here and they just start wrecking things. There are other autoloaders with faster turrets, but TDs tend to have very slow turrets as a balance mechanism because they carry generally very good guns. This thing is also not very good of a turner. It's not much of a corner kind of machine like a lot of the British tanks. For some reason, they just don't turn very fast. So it took a while to get his gun online. So put 1. Now he's reloaded and he actually gets a shot into us. All right. Another decision point. We're down to 4 tanks on each side. We have 3 shells total and only 2 in the hopper. So do we hit C and bring these 3 up in 40 seconds, or do we just hit 1 and twice? I think it'll take 1 twice and bring 4 shells of the regular stuff up. I think I go, I don't know really. You know, it's up to you. The T-28 prototype has pretty good armor. Even the LT-432 has pretty decent frontal armor. So I think 3 shells is not a bad idea right here. But everything's pretty low, and with the 4, you can almost just about clean up everything that they have with 1 clip. Probably going to have to reload somewhere. All right, what do? Go after the Arty. Go after the near-dead T-28. We have a 432 spotting somewhere. All of us are 1-shots, especially to the prototype if he's carrying the big gun. And probably to the middle gun, actually, because I want to say it's 320 alpha on that thing. So we do a nice job and link back up with our team. I thought that was a good idea. GA, probably not a great idea to move across over to the east side and get into the open, because the prototype's over there and the 432's got good spotting. Looks like everybody has decided, you know what, let's go crush their Arty. Arty is certainly an X factor in this game, and they can one-shot all 3 of you basically at this point. So getting rid of them is pretty important. That 432 should be absolutely trying to spot right now. Light you guys up wherever you are and see if his Arty can take 1 out. The prototype's not going to be a whole lot of help. He's very slow. So you're going to have to watch out for just walking into him. Looks like between you and the Barask, all this mobility. There we go. We find one of those dudes. Barask is going to nuke him. Boom, boom. That's good. Now we're going to look for the other artillery, which was actually seen last on the other side of the map over there. So the IS-2 has moved to the middle to kind of cover that. That's a bold move. He's probably lucky that he didn't get seen and killed off by the 432. But the prototype's very slow, so who knows where that guy is. By now, he could just about be anywhere, though, so you do have to be mindful of that. The 432 could easily be anywhere. The fact that he hasn't found anybody means he's, to me anyway, that he's probably turtled up in a bush attempting to spot where you guys were up in the north. But he has to know that you've moved. Down goes the ISU. That's going to let him know that the ISU is not back in the north there at all. I like this. Get on the cap. Kind of force these guys out. You've got the ISU backing up. The Barask has gone off to screen near your cap, which I think is a great idea. And we're just going to hang out here. I'm going to speed this thing up because the T-28 shows up. He obviously lights the Barask, and the 432 is then going to move in and try to take out the Barask, but bad move really overall because you're down to 12 seconds with two guys on the cap. Down goes the 432. And I think the prototype ends. The prototype shows up right at the end, I think. Let me get my massive mug here. Alright, day after Christmas. You gotta love it. And we get a cap one. T-28 did not show up. I thought he did. Well, there you go. There's just some thoughts on that. I don't think I can really point to any one thing where, hey, GA, you screwed up. Just a lot of little small things to think about. I would have gone to the hill, but as it was, it ends up being a win, and it's a great example of a further back kind of concept with a TD. And I won't call it passive. I'm not going to call it camping. You were back there getting shot. So shots were going down range. You can't argue with that. You positioned yourself in the right position to do that. I thought it was a little dangerous at the very first where you parked looking for those early shots, but nothing really showed up. And we got into position from there. Falling back was a great idea. Worked on those guys as they moved in. Worked with your Artie and your other TDs and were able to blunt that attack. And then once it broke open, running around with the other three guys linking up, and nice little teamwork between the last three. And you find that quite often with good players because they tend to be the ones that last towards the end. Be careful with the campers that last towards the end that are absolutely clueless. But you could tell right away that everyone was working together, going after the same goal right there. So that's always nice when that shows up in World of Tanks because it does not always. So like I said, clip management on this thing is a big deal. It's very dangerous if it can get its shots down range, but it is quite fragile and turns like the Queen Mary, and the turret's very slow. So yes, it seems like a great kind of circle tank, and it can be, but it is a little tricky to use right there. Really, honestly, lots of little things there. All right, guys, let us know what you think down below in the comments if you have any more advice for GA Johnny on the GSOR. Equipment-wise, I don't know what you were carrying. You have to let us know down there. Binocs. Anybody else using binocs? I don't think I would put those on there, but if you got a spot for yourself, it might be nice for the those long-range kind of engagements. That's all I've got. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I appreciate your support of the channel as always. If you're looking for other ways to do so, you can check it out down in the description. That's all I've got for today. See ya.